Red flag number two, the context of the complaint are almost nil. There's really it's like there's no really actual facts.
If this is such a mistake and impossible and not appropriate and going to get them in trouble, why would they have done it?
Ryan Reynolds is losing it as BlakeLively pulls what might be the most self-sabotaging stunt of a career, a completely bogus lawsuit. And no, this isn't the kind of...
That would be an abusive process, and we intend to take all action allowable under the law, as you're saying, echoing what you're saying.
In true Blake fashion, she filed a shady lawsuit through Vanzan Inc, seemingly convinced she could outmaneuver the system. Spoiler alert, the internet...
Well, it's an ethical problem. Well, there's a lot of problems. So the optics of this are terrible. This lends to the credence that this was obviously created not with any good faith basis of a dispute between Vanzan and Doe's.
Where do we even begin? Blake's on a whole new level of reckless. This legal circus makes her past PR missteps look like amateur hour. She's managed to redefine messy with a lawsuit that's basically a PR landmine.
This Vanzan versus the John Doe's is clearly a BlakeLively lawsuit, but clearly was filed without anybody's actual name to skirt the issue and try to get this more secretive. Now,
yep, you heard that right. A lawsuit with no real defendants. No specific target. Just a cryptic John Doe mystery. Like we're all supposed to play detective now. Who does it?
Any lawyer will tell you you do not file a complaint if you don't know the name of the person that you are suing, unless you're trying to protect that person's identity for some reason, which if you're pissed off enough to sue them, you probably don't care about their identity.
Let's file a lawsuit against imaginary people and see what happens. Classic BlakeLively move, right?
Now, this case is now, I think, already been dismissed, right, Ron? So this has already been filed and done with the date of September 27th in New York.
And let's not ignore the timing. It's suspicious, to say the least.
But our reporters are confirming that too. Yes, this case was dismissed. Unclear when, but from what I gathered as well, right before the CRD was filed in New York from Blake.
This little legal stunt just happened to drop right before Blake's Civil Rights Department commander filing. What a coincidence. It's almost as if there's some secret coordinated scheme aimed...
It was dismissed voluntarily by Vanzan Inc. just before the New York Times article came out.
And just like that, the lawsuit was dismissed in December 2024 by Vanzan. It came and went faster than a bad TikTok trend. But let's be real, filing a vague lawsuit to quietly gather confidential info, that's not exactly subtle.
That was a company of BlakeLively's. As more and more went through the state of California and other sort of filings, it was owned by Blake Reynolds.
Oh, and here's the kicker. Vanzan Incorporated shares a business address with none other than Ryan Reynolds and BlakeLively. That's not just a red flag.
This Vanzan complaint was created purely with an ulterior motive, which has its ethical implications, if that's true, with regards to the New York State Bar. Probably as Vanzan Inc. probably has some implications. You know, nobody should be wasting the court's time.
If this doesn't scream, let's cook up a shady scheme to sidestep legal protocol. What does? Are we really supposed to believe this was all above board?
Lively's lawyers said the newly uncovered lawsuit was common and entirely appropriate and accused Friedman of faux outrage.
Let's call it what it is. Blake's team used an inactive shell company to try and access data they had no right to. But sure, totally normal. Nothing to see here, folks.
So by talking to some other folks, I've learned that there was a confidentiality agreement between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni.
And then things really heat up. Enter Stephanie Jones, the publicist with ties to both Blake and Justin.
If she were to voluntarily give internal communications between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni to a third party, regardless of the purpose of whether being asked for, that would be a violation of that confidentiality agreement.
Allegedly, she handed over Jennifer O's phone records to Blake's legal team. And yes, that might be illegal, especially since, reminder, there wasn't even an active lawsuit. Oh, and isn't it so convenient that this all loops back to WME, the agency that representatives Blake and Ryan?
You know, trying to get the cell phone records from Jennifer Abel, they said they got a subpoena, which also allowed the New York Times to do this as well. Well, we finally now have learned what this so-called case was that everyone's wondering, well, where did this come from?
We're deep into legal spaghetti now. Vanzan Incorporated, WME, Blake's lawyers, sketch your subpoenas. It's a legal chess game where everyone's losing and no one knows the rules.
Red flag number 2, the context of the complaint are almost nil. There's really, it's like there's no really actual facts.
Honestly, the deeper we dig, the more it seems like Blake and Ryan concocted a scheme so tangled even they might not fully understand it.
Reynolds must have confused the rules of pleading with the rules of evidence, which I've definitely seen some discussion online of people saying that's a little sassy. That is a little sassy.
So what's really going on? Is this just Blake versus Justin? Or is there something much bigger at play here? Either way, it's all manipulation, misdirection, and a lot of eyebrow-raising behavior.
Yeah, I think we've noticed over the past couple of weeks even there have been a few clips that have come out of the woodwork essentially about Ryan that sleuths have found with some kind of problematic moments. And then there's also been the whole kid pool controversy, which definitely doesn't make him look great either.
Ryan, for his part, is reportedly not amused. This isn't a little PR blip. It's a full-blown legal meltdown, and he knows exactly how bad it could get.
Now here Friedman is quoted in TMZ. Let's look at what he said. Mr. Reynolds' exploitation of his enormous power in Hollywood continues, this time arrogantly asking to be dismissed from the case despite his publicly documented involvement extending far beyond just being a supportive spouse.
He can claim jokes or whatever, but to pull random quotes of Justin talking about his teenage years and his growth and maturity and to try to use against him to label him a predator, which none of the quotes did, I actually applaud them for, even though they're not supposed to do it, for making the point to be like, nice try, Reynolds. You have your own quotes. This is something they reiterate a lot. We disagree. Here's why. But worst case scenario, if we lose, we are allowed legally to go make an amendment, and we should at least be doing that.
Ryan, again, as I said, it seems very obvious to me that Ryan is the hand behind everything that is happening here. Justin Baldoni, he is playing a fake alpha. What a manipulative, lying little twerp she is. I cannot stand her for this.
On another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Ms. Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good."
A man being fully castrated by a woman who is using toxic feminism to get what she wants.
So the subpoena would, in theory, insulate her from a lawsuit of violating the breach of confidentiality agreement because
failed to set forth any basis for his liability, that they were merely acted as a supportive spouse. No, he was not just a supportive spouse. The FAC specifically alleges ample facts to support the Wayfarer's claims against Ryan based on both his direct actions and his liability as a co-conspirator.
All hell broke loose. She claims he sexual harassed her, and then by the time they premiered the movie, they weren't even speaking to each other. She made him stay in the basement, and Ryan Reynolds turned on him too. And then she claimed that he unleashed a bad PR campaign against her.
The lawyers call out Reynolds' claim that the FAC failed to identify defamatory statements and says that the argument falls on its face, which we have
fails
here.
on its face.
Sorry, fails on its fails on
Reynolds
its face.
The same address, 888 7th Avenue, 4th floor in New York. And look who is the agent. Eric Binder.
This is the latest filing. This is in response to Ryan's very petty and sassy response that it felt like he clearly wrote, since it had pop culture references, which Kim and I noticed. Burn Book mentions. Like, come on, Ryan. That's clearly.
You know, when
you
Mean
wrote
Girls
that.
comes into the filing, it's legit.
Now, the question we've all been dying to ask.
Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Justin Baldoni may have a very strong case against the New York Times. You're not going to believe this, okay? This pertains to data. Lively is not a good person, that she has proven herself not to be a kind person, okay? So in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, he accuses Ryan Reynolds of colluding, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, of colluding with the New York Times. And I think explicitly it says for months, that they were plotting with the New York Times for months to smear him.
Maximum Effort Productions. This is the same production company, the same marketing company of Ryan Reynolds. We all have heard of Maximum Effort Productions. We've heard of them.
They're profoundly different now. So I think he's saying what all of us also have been saying lately, that this whole PR stunt with these 6 women going into space, saying that this was for the best for the world or for feminism. And in reality, it was to promote Katy Perry's tour, amongst other things. And Rogan said that it was very profound. I don't know if you've seen Katy Perry talk about it, but she's basically a guru now. Maybe you think one day I could be a space tourist and I'm a woman and I can make that happen. I don't know. They're pointing out her in this Daily Mail article about Katy Perry's comment about being connected to love when she went into space.
It's deranged. It's nonsensical. Like, fire the whole PR team. It's dumb. I cannot get into the layers of how that is exactly how bullies operate. It's just a joke. You don't get it. You're thin-skinned if you're upset about it. That is how insane